Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video.
Well, welcome back to Giga Texas. It's Wednesday, the 23rd of November, 2022. It's also the day before Thanksgiving here in the United States. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to all of my viewers, all of my patrons that have been supporting me over this last year. This is my third Thanksgiving filming at Giga Texas, which is unbelievable. I also want to say thank you to Tesla and all of the employees that have made my time here so enjoyable and for allowing me to continue to provide this footage to everybody around the world. I also want to say thank you to all the contractors and the other workers that are out here at the site that have been very kind to me as well. This journey has been unbelievable, and I just can't imagine that I've been doing this for so long and that I'm going to try to continue to do this for a while longer. But anyway, I just want to say thank you to everybody. There's a couple of things I just want to show you in the intro today. I spent some time on the west side of the highway showing you 3 staging locations that are of interest. One is on the north, near the North Bridge. This has been added recently to kind of the old original staging yard, as you can see here. And they're starting to move some trailers and some other equipment over to this new area. Also nearby is the clearing area that's now become a staging location that has a lot of fencing going up and some more of the plants that'll be used for landscaping, as you can see in these images. Now this image, these 2 staging locations are pretty close together, and I think they're being used to relocate materials from the farther south staging location, which is also looks like a foundation. As you can see here, about half of it now has been cleared out. Now some of this has been relocated to those new staging areas a little bit farther north that we just discussed, and a lot of it's been moved over to the site, specifically near the battery cathode plant. And speaking of the battery cathode plant, one other thing that I just want to show you in the intro today, as you can see by this image, in that foundation that they've been putting the geopiers, they're now starting to do the soil testing that we've been discussing up to this point. And also, they're starting to install some trenches, as you can see in these images. Now, recently there's been a new permit for 107,000 square feet building that will have some sewer and water systems underneath. Now, this may be that location. This building is described as a single level, and it will have water treatment capability. I don't know if it's right here by the battery cathode plant, but with some of the developments today, it kind of lends a little bit of credence to that. But anyway, a lot more to see in the video today. I hope that you enjoy time with your family for Thanksgiving, and as always, thank you very much for your support and for watching. Have a great Thanksgiving.
A special thank you to all of my outstanding patrons for your continued encouragement and support. Patreon members get access to hundreds of high-resolution photos, previews of the future material, and direct dialogue with me. If you would like to support my channel, please consider becoming a patron using this link, which is also in the video description. Please also consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons, as this helps as well. Thank you. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. Start off today on the northwest side of the highway over at the material staging location. I also hope you enjoyed that extended view of a nice sunrise for Thanksgiving here at Giga Texas. Now as I pull away, I'm showing you where continued work to try to widen the road is underway in this section. Also on the left hand side of the screen, you can see several more car carriers that are queuing up here before they go over pick up more Model Ys. Now, as the steel materials shows you, there's a lot that has been delivered here recently, and the amount that is being stored here continues to grow. Most of the gray is new, and some of the brown is actually new as well. They're also preparing the grade in this section for probably bringing more materials up from the far south staging location that you can see at the top of the screen. And you can see that they've put some gravel mix on top of this grade that has been flattened out and prepared. Most likely we'll start seeing materials being deposited on that very soon. Now, this second staging location was created about a month or so ago, and as you can see, they're continuing to install fencing around to kind of segment up this area. They also have quite a bit of containers, some trailers, a lot of materials, and on the left-hand side of the screen you can see more plants that are going to be used for landscaping, and also the purple pipe for irrigation. Now on the left hand of the screen you can see the main entrance, and we know that they've been doing some reconfiguration work there. I'm wondering if possibly some of these plants are going to be used for landscaping in that reconfigured main entrance. But as we continue farther to the south, I'm going to give you some good views of this material staging location, and also potentially a foundation, just to show you the changes. And what we can see from the north end is quite a bit of the containers still here, some of the corrugated pipes on the north end, some other materials, but almost the entire mid to south end has been cleaned out of materials. And some of that has ended up over at the battery cathode plant, some of it's been used in the other parts of the site, and some of it's been relocated farther to the north to those two staging locations that we saw. Now on the left-hand side of the screen you can see those 4 stainless steel tanks, and also the gray bridge crane rails. The rails go to the casting machine structure, and I believe that those tanks go to the battery cathode plant. Here you can see crews working on this clearing location. As I was leaving after filming today, I noticed that they were putting out some markers for parking spaces, possibly for trailers. So this may be expansion for the warehouse and wheels. Maybe it's for other trailers. It could possibly be for vehicle parking as well. But it's a very interesting new development that is going on this particular staging location. And this is also a very good view of Giga Texas in the background. You can see a lot of steam rising up from the roof. That just shows you that production is going on today, even though it's the day before Thanksgiving. So let's get ready to cross over the highway and pick up the flight on this side of the highway. And on the bottom right, you can see that trenching with electrical conduit. The majority of it is now filled back in with dirt, just leaving this last section next to these concrete vaults, and then the one with the open doors. This will eventually replace all of these low-level power lines and poles, which will really be nice to clean up this particular location. Also, a lot of the steel and other materials continue to be stored on this side, just south of the cyber pond. And also, as I mentioned before, on the right-hand side of the screen, those containers are all solar panels that will eventually be lifted up to the roof to continue the solar panel installation. I'm going to climb up over the power lines and then move the drone towards the north and then back towards the main factory. What I want to show you is right in the center and the bottom of the screen, where those concrete vaults and the electrical conduit continue to have installation in and around where the electrical connections will be made, and then to replace those low lying power lines. Also on the right hand side of the screen you can see some work in this cordoned off area, which used to be for the horizontal drilling operation. Now it looks like there's some trenching work that's being done that's possibly related to the electrical conduit. But you can see that the crews are there right next to a trench box, which allows them to enter into a trench without it collapsing. And you can see the worker walking along the trenches back towards where the electrical conduit is. But anyway, this is an interesting development of what they're doing in this part of the construction site. This is a good view of the south end and how all of that concrete continues to be removed, some of the steel parts on this east side. And also some really good views of the AIDA stamping press components, all in those blue topped crates and those blue and green very large items sitting on the rails next to the building. And I'll give you a closer view of that in just a few minutes. This is also a good view of this parking and material staging location. Also, I'm going to pull back to show you that some of the clearing continues to have some dirt placed here. They've been using this as sort of a dirt repository until it's used in other parts of the construction site, but it looks like they are adding more here today, so I'll have to continue to monitor to find out what exactly they're doing. As I get closer here, you can see these black trailers. This is what is used to pick up the scraps from the stamping machine, and then those parts are recycled. You can also see these large machinery, the red and the white. I believe these are DMG Mori milling machines also, awaiting for installation, most likely inside stamping extension, which is still under construction, and it's where they are also installing the AIDA stamping press. As we get closer to the building, you can see a very large item has just been delivered and moved up on top of the platform, and there's two similar ones on the ground getting ready to be moved up as well. And this just view gives you a good idea of how large that equipment is located. Anyway, coming back down here, I'm going to show you some of the components for the AIDA stamping press. As I mentioned in the previous video, this is not the IDRA Giga Press. This is a stamping press. And the parts are extremely large. You can see where the crews are just down the bottom of the screen that they're getting ready to unwrap another one. And then you can also see an SPMT, which is self-propelled modular transport, very similar to what you might see at Starbase. And those are used to physically pick up and transport those large AIDA stamping machine components. This is a good view of the south end with all of the concrete removed. You can see there's been some rain recently, so we're getting a little bit of puddles and ponding, but otherwise the progress continues. Where the the red and white excavator is located, all of this section has just recently had the concrete removed and then hauled off by the yard trucks. And you can see the remaining section has already been saw cut, and that'll be getting ready to remove these sections shortly. You can also see three of the saws on the upper and the right hand side of the screen. As we continue further to the west, you can see that there's some work here on this blue water pipe. Now this was originally installed and looked like it was completed about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but it looks like they've picked up this section and they are doing a little bit of rework on this blue water pipe, and I'm not exactly sure why. You can also see in this clearing location some concrete pipes have been delivered, and this will be for underground water management, so that explains a little bit of what they're doing in this particular section. And you can also see some other work just going underneath the drone. Now I'll get in a little bit closer. You can see closer in view of how these concrete pipes appear, and then looking at the workers, that gives you a good idea of the scale. You can see some trench boxes right in the middle of the screen too. This implies that there's going to be some trenching to install those pipes at some near future date. And then you can also see the crews here are working on removing these sections of the concrete, just sort of the north end, near where you can see all of the new Model Ys that are getting charged up and coming down out of the south end of the factory. Now that one Model Y that was moving is kind of all dirty. That's the lead car that takes Model Ys, like all of these, and leads them over to the east parking lot and also the new car staging and transportation lot. So anyway, let's continue up along the west side of General Assembly toward the north, and we'll take a look at what's going on with the main entrance renovation today. As we arrive at the main entrance, you can see more of the concrete has been removed. They've saw cut them into these rectangular sections. You can see several of them piled up onto the concrete on the right hand side and also nearest to the drone. And it looks like they are preparing to remove more around and near these stairs. And this gives you a good view of what's going on with the stairs. It looks like they are cross-cut as well. And as you saw at the extensive cover in my previous video, they're doing renovation work on the inside here as well. I'm pulling back to give you just an overall view of how this looks today with the landscaping in the foreground. And where they're doing the saw cuts and those interesting edge treatments, this is where we were talking earlier about some of the plants and landscaping on the west side of the highway. I'm wondering if those are destined to be installed here as well. So let me know what you think in the comments. As we continue up over the roof, I'll give you a good view of the work going on here in the roof of the body in white section of the building, where they're installing some ducting. And also it looks like they're going to be installing grates on top of the open section of the roof to encourage ventilation for the heating and ventilation system that is installed just underneath all of these vents. As we move over towards the east side of the building, one of the things I want to show you is the ongoing construction. You can see 3 sections here right next to the building. This is where they've added receiving doors by cutting into the walls, and it looks like they're continuing to do some plumbing work underneath where the slab will be replaced at some point, and all 3 of them will have concrete slabs added. Also, in this small parking lot, which will eventually be the replacement for the lot on the south end, you can see that the crews are very busy with doing electrical conduit and some trenching, and also 2 sections. I believe this is going to be for superchargers. Also at the bottom of the screen, you can see where the new vehicle test loop with bump strips and other devices to drive the vehicles over to test them out before delivery. But here's a really good close-up view of the trench work that is going on here. You can see there's 2 main sections that will most likely be the superchargers, and you can see just how much of the conduit has been installed into these trenches. Now where you see the new dirt being compacted by that automatic device, that yellow device, there's more trenches and conduit that's been installed into there. You can see some of it being filled in here. Now I also noticed there's this large concrete panel where the worker is walking on. I'm not sure exactly what that is. It may be covering for one of the trenches. You can see the holes that may be where some of the conduit comes through, but it's worth something for me to be tracking, and I'll see how that looks the next time I come out to film. But as I turn the drone back over to the north and then northeast, this gives you a good view of that new car staging and transportation lot. Looks like another truck is loading up with vehicles, and it's also a pretty good number of Model Ys here. There's probably about maybe 100, 125 waiting here for transportation. And just yesterday up at the Hutto Rail Yard, there was about 400 Model Ys being moved onto the trains. So production is continuing at a pretty decent ramped rate right now here at Giga Texas, but what the exact number is, I'm not exactly sure. So as we continue towards the battery cathode plant, I'll stop here first just to show you some more of these red and white components that are being stockpiled. These are most likely going to be going into the casting machine structure at some point as they continue to fit out that section and prepare for the larger gigapress. As I move back this way, you can see a good view of the warehouse on wheels and that new large temporary parking lot. You can also see where the buses are. There's a new main entrance for the contractors to come through for working here at Giga Texas. Now here's a good view of this new pond with the liner and some of the water that has been pumped out of a pond that no longer exists, and I'll show you that in a second, but this is a good view of how this overall section looks. Where you see this new dirt and the sort of the light tan covering, this is where the pond used to be that was pumped out, and the water in that lined pond. And as you can see, quite a bit of activity on this section where there will eventually be a structure. This is the soil testing rig, and you can see the crews are installing one of the soil testing devices right now. As I mentioned in the intro, there is a new permit for a 107,000 square feet single-story building that will have pipes for water and sewer. And I'm wondering if this trench that we see here is another indication that that permit is for this particular site. And if so, it'll be a fairly large square structure that's installed here. And it'll be something I'll continue to monitor. But this is a really good view of how the trench work appears today, the work for the geopiers, and also the soil strength testing that is going on. As I come back towards the main building, you can see crews working on these pipe manifolds. It looks like they have been assembling even more of them. And what I believe is that this will be suspended underneath this large steel structure and then connect to all of the pipes that have been installed inside of the building. And also you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, it looks like some more geopier. I think they're just parking it here, but I'll be watching to see if they're going to be doing any geopier work in this section. You can see this large white covered structure and all of the equipment that's underneath it. Much of this was on that southwest staging location where I'd mentioned that they are clearing it out, and a lot of that was brought over here recently from that staging location. Speaking of which, this north clearing and staging location appears today like there's still more work going up to the north, and also some work near where those trees are, and quite a bit more of the steel materials and other materials have been brought in here. Again, all of this will be used for that new structure that they are doing the soil testing and trenching that we talked about earlier. As I bring the drone down here, you can see this steel structure. It has that interior room kind of covered with plastic. It's kind of an interesting design. Again, I'm not sure exactly what it's for, but it's kind of a room within a steel structure. You can see the Evapco components on the right-hand side of the screen next to the building. Those will most likely be moved over on top of that steel structure. And then here you can see a new temporary loading platform being assembled by the crews, and this will allow for materials and equipment to be lifted up and put into the third floor on this side of the building. You can see one of those white wrapped large components as well, just on the right of the screen. Here you can see more of the concrete wall panel installation has been underway, and several more of the sections that needed the concrete wall panels have been added. So the building is quickly getting all of its walls, and most of the holes are starting to be filled back in. But this is a good view of the overall construction site by the battery cathode plant. And as we transfer over this direction, you can see where that pond was on the left-hand side of the screen. The right is where they're preparing the foundation, and here's where that lined temporary pond is located. So let's go over to the electrical switchyard and see what activity is going on over here today. So as mentioned previously, we've had a lot of rain recently. You can see some of the remnants of that in and around the switchyard. Also in this transformer foundation, you can see quite a bit of water is ponding in here. So for right now, work is sort of stopped until the rains end up. Probably get through the holidays, they'll have to drain that out, and then they can begin working again. But otherwise, some more steel assembly has taken place over the last 48 hours. This is a good view of this control room and some of the wiring that is being staged nearby, and that'll be used to help wire up most of the electrical switchyard itself. And this is a really good view of the 4 A-frame towers. These are 4 of eventually 7. And you can see the 4 circuit breakers, the large items with the V kind of tops installed here. And I'll bring the drone back just so you can get a good overall view of how this section appears today. You can see some of the materials being stored just to the west of this water detention pond. And judging by the berm erosion, they're going to have to do some rework on that pond and do some erosion control to prevent this from happening in the future. But otherwise, you can see generally how this section appears today. I'm going to give you a little bit lower view from this vantage point. I haven't shown you this before, and we'll go up over the A-frame towers just so you can see how this section of the electrical switchyard appears today and where these transformer foundations are located. Now I'll bring you over the temporary electrical switch yard, which is what is currently providing the power for Giga Texas. And also right on the south end, you can see all of these materials that are being stockpiled. This is more steel parts, the two more remaining circuit breakers, and then some smaller ones off to the right as well. All of these will be installed into the switch yard. So let's proceed back towards the main building and take a look at what's going on over there. Here's a good view of all of the castings that have been made are being temporarily stored right here on the ground and also in these rack mounts. These most likely are just the rear castings, as the variety of Model Ys being built here are almost predominantly 2170s at this time. But I'll fly over the roof. You can see some of the smoke coming up from some of the chimneys where there's work going on inside. And also, I wanted to show you here on this northwest corner that despite the fact that this is not completed with the ducting and the enclosures, with the amount of steam coming up, they're clearly doing some work using the equipment underneath here. So despite what the roof may appear, it definitely looks like they are operational inside, which is great to see. And this is the part of the building that is responsible for making the 4680 battery cells. It's a good view of the work going on between the parking lot and the road. It looks like more plumbing, and also crews are busy with making curbs and looks like preparing to extend the sidewalk. I'll give you a good slow view of the work that is going on here, just so you can see how the crews are installing the formwork for those curbs. And looks like they're doing some preparation for more formwork and curbs right here where the excavator is busy. And it looks like it'll be sort of a semicircular kind of curb once it's installed. This is a good view of just the activity with the materials, the ducting, the cranes bringing up components to the top of these loading platforms into the paint shop. But anyway, I'll do a pullback here to highlight the overall construction site. As always, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. And as always, thank you for watching.